In 2013, we saw one of the worst general managers of all time take control of a Philadelphia 76ers franchise. And I know that might be a bold claim, and we appreciated how upfront Sam Hinkie was about the direction of the Philadelphia 76ers, but many of us fail to realize what the process era truly brought us. This video is sponsored and brought to you by Raycon, which is a company that was co-founded by Ray J and is adored by celebrities like Snoop Dogg and Cardi B and J.R. Smith. Bro, do you think J.R. Smith has bad taste in anything? Well, let me tell you why I personally prefer Raycons over any other wireless earbud on the market. For one, they're not overpriced. They're about half the price of any wireless earbud. The reason why I use them personally is because once you put them in your ear, they never slip out, which is very ideal if you're doing cardio or you're training at the gym. Also, I love listening to EDM, so I need earbuds with crazy high bass, and Raycon gives me that bass that I crave whenever I'm trying to get those extra sets in. But not only that, it has seamless Bluetooth pairing, it has 6 hours of playtime, and it comes in a variety of different colors. So go to buyraycon.com/Flightmike for 15% off of your order, and let's get to today's video. During his time as tenure of the Philadelphia 76ers, Sam Hinkie made a plethora of poor decisions, including trading the 76ers lone all-star for a career backup center named Nerlens Noel, then drafting the best center in the entire NBA draft the following year with a ton of injury issues in Joel Embiid, which is a move that ended up panning out for them, and then once again the year after, opting to draft another center who is currently a career backup with the entire NBA named Jahlil Okafor over players such as Kristaps Porzingis. On December of 2015, the 76ers decided that they finally saw enough, opting to hire Jerry Colangelo, who would eventually overtake Sam Hinkie's position. Joel Embiid seemed to have a ton of potential when he could stay healthy, and the Philadelphia 76ers got the #1 overall pick, which they used to draft Ben Simmons, who would follow a very similar formula as Joel Embiid, redshirting his rookie season, which would allow the 76ers to once again have a poor season and luck into the #3 overall spot in the 2017 NBA draft. The 76ers seemed like they were a point guard away from truly fulfilling their potential, and what they really desired was a point guard that could also play off the ball from Ben Simmons, whose true position was that of a point guard or a point forward. And luckily for them, that year's #1 overall pick had a reputation of being able to create his own shot, take players off the dribble, drive into the lane whenever he wanted to, and play off of the ball, spot up around the three-point line, and hit whatever shot that you needed him to. On top of that, he had a 6'10" wingspan and tremendous defensive potential. This was the player that was required in order for the Philadelphia 76ers to complete the process. So what did the Sixers do? They traded up from the #3 pick to the #1 pick with the Boston Celtics and decided with the first pick in the 2017 NBA draft, they were going to draft a player who was compared to Dwayne Wade, and that's Markelle Fultz. The Boston Celtics would end up dropping down to the #3 spot and would end up drafting Jason Tatum, which in hindsight kills Philadelphia 76ers fans everywhere, because Sixers fans often ponder how terrifying a lineup of Ben Simmons at the true point guard position and Jason Tatum would be. This isn't the first bit of bad luck that would befall upon the 76ers, who have recently rebuilt their team. And despite this one little bit of bad luck, the Sixers had hope. Because in the 2017 to 2018 season, the Philadelphia 76ers saw their most successful season in almost 6 years, finishing the regular season in 3rd place in the Eastern Conference with a 52-30 winning record and a playoff spot. For the first time in many years, the Philadelphia 76ers had one thing that they haven't had in years since the Allen Iverson days, and that's hope. But unfortunately for us, controversy would soon follow, as the 76ers general manager Brian Colangelo apparently would create these burner accounts and talk trash about his own team. The team, doing whatever they could to distance themselves from this mess, decided to part ways with Colangelo. But that's not the only issue. #1 overall pick of the 2017 NBA draft, Markelle Fultz, was not able to play a single bit in the 2017 NBA season, and when he did, he looked like a shell of his former self. And in one of the craziest mysteries in NBA history, the best way I could explain this, and at the time this is how we could explain it, Markelle Fultz seemingly forgot how to shoot. But as time would progress forward, we would find out that he was diagnosed with thoracic outlet syndrome. Rumor after rumor would come out. Was it a motorcycle accident? Did Markelle Fultz get involved in some sort of accident when he was not playing basketball that ruined his shooting form? What could cause Markelle to all of a sudden go from this dominant high school and college player to a player that was a shell of his former self? With every low point would come a peak for the Philadelphia 76ers, as in November 12, 2018, the 76ers would trade Dario Saric, Robert Covington, and Jared Bayless in return for Justin Patton and Jimmy Butler, truly indicating that this was the team that will eventually bring a championship to Philadelphia, as he acquired Tobias Harris and Boban Marjanovic and Mike Scott in return for sending Mike Muscala, Landry Shamet, and Wilson Chandler and a protected first-round pick to the Los Angeles Clippers. I don't know what kind of high Elton Brand was on. He probably felt really good from the fact that he was able to acquire such talent in the middle of the season and rebuild the Philadelphia 76ers in his vision, because he also decided to give up on the number 1 overall pick of the 2017 NBA draft, trading him to the Orlando Magic for mere pennies on the dollar. Literally, this entire trade was just so the Philadelphia 76ers could get away from any possible distraction of Markelle Fultz. And from this point on, this is when we truly saw Elton Brand make poor decision after poor decision after poor decision. And this would be the first in a series of poor decisions for Elton Brand. And although this isn't the worst of his poor decisions, it gets way, way worse after this, as the Philadelphia 76ers would venture into the playoffs, and they would make it as far as the second round of the NBA playoffs, only to lose on this jump shot against Kawhi Leonard. Yes, a truly heartbreaking loss for the Philadelphia 76ers. But unfortunately, it gets even worse for them, as that summer, Jimmy Butler would opt to depart from the Liberty City for the sunny shores of South Beach, Miami. A move that clearly seems like to be the right one, as the Philadelphia 76ers began to scramble in panic. Let's dive into the monster that is the Philadelphia 76ers 2019 offseason. They were so close to making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Elton Brand and company seemed a few moves away from making it happen. So let's start with draft day. The 76ers began by doing the entire NBA a favor and letting it be known that they really truly loved Matisse Thybulle, who is a very special defensive prospect who has been, by every measure, a valuable selection at 20th overall. But the 76ers' performance in the 2019 NBA draft was brutal, and I don't want to get into the point of what moves they should have made, but think of it this way. They came off of a series loss in which they failed to find 3 playable reserves, about to become a perennial luxury tax team in need of cheap contributors, and they owned 3 picks in the top 35 of a very, very deep draft. And the 76ers came away with one guy, and that's Matisse Thybulle. They used picks number 24 and 33 to get the 20th pick from Boston to take Thybulle. And this is Danny Ainge being Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge took advantage of a poor secret kept by the Philadelphia 76ers, whose love for Matisse Thybulle was apparent across the league, and they ended up trading the 34th pick to Atlanta and gave up the 42nd pick to shed the Jonathan Simmons contract, which was only a $1 million cap hit. So this wasn't a total failure. Matisse Thybulle is a great prospect for this team, but the 76ers could have gotten more value out of that trade with Boston. Now, that isn't even the worst of things. Let's start with free agency. The 76ers used their $4.7 million mid-level exception to bring back Mike Scott on a fully guaranteed 2-year guaranteed deal worth $10 million. And again, Mike Scott's a very useful contributor, but he hasn't really shown that for the most part this season. Now, I can't really blame the 76ers for this decision because he knocked down over 40% of his three-pointers last season. He's only making 34% of them this year. James Ennis seemed to be another very promising player who was brought back on a 1-year deal, but he ended up falling out of the rotation after being dealt to Orlando. It's hard to blame the 76ers at all here because James Ennis was very helpful last season, especially against Toronto, and he wanted to come back to compete for a championship, and this signing clearly did not work out. The only very good move that I think the 76ers made that was very minor was bringing back Furkan Korkmaz on a multi-year deal to continue his development. Korkmaz is definitely the crown jewel of a very disappointing free agency class for the 76ers because he's become an integral part of the rotation. He's shooting 39% from beyond the arc on 5 attempts per game and becoming more and more capable within other parts of the game. Not only has he been a positive contributor to this year's team, but because the 76ers signed him to a 2-year deal, he can also be a valuable contributor on next year's team. This is pretty much as good as it could get when you're signing a minimum contract, and this signing was probably the greatest value that the 76ers got since probably the Landry Shamet pick. Now, Let's talk about the big free agents, man. So the first thing that they did was sign a player that without a doubt would put them over the hump, would allow them to stretch the floor, and a player that was without a doubt a great fit for the Philadelphia 76ers the year prior, and they decided to sign Tobias Harris to a 5-year, $180 million contract. A move that may have been considered to be a slight overpay for a player that was averaging 16.6 rebounds and 2 assists off of 47% shooting for his entire career, that had a career player efficiency rating of 16, but it was a move that the Philadelphia 76ers felt was necessary in order for them to put themselves over the hump. The next move was even more egregious, as the Philadelphia 76ers opted to poach the Boston Celtics big man Al Horford 10 days later and signed the 34-year-old big man to a 4-year, $109 million contract. And so far, he hasn't been that good, guys. He's been terrible. He's currently relegated to the bench, and he's 34. He's not going to get better from here on out. He's going to get worse. He has potential to be the worst contract in the entire NBA, even worse than John Wall. But here's why I am completely perplexed by what the 76ers did. We talk a lot about Joel Embiid's fit and Ben Simmons' fit and how it isn't ideal. Joel Embiid needs to be in a half-court setting, his back to the basket, in order to fully get you his best minutes, whereas Ben Simmons likes to play in transition. It isn't ideal, but they do need similar complementary pieces around them. Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid need a reliable playmaker and quality shot makers who can help space the floor. And with the entire world knowing that they needed shooting and ball handling, the 76ers replaced Jimmy Butler and JJ Redick with Al Horford. And honestly, I didn't think the Al Horford signing would go this poorly. I didn't really understand it at the time, but it's not a newfound revelation that if you group a big man with another big man, it isn't going to work out. We've seen it happen literally last year with Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin, and we're currently seeing it happen with the Cleveland Cavaliers with Kevin Love and Andre Drummond. Now you have Al Horford and Joel Embiid, and things are just going really bad because both of those players need to be in the post in order to be successful. Al Horford isn't the greatest three-point shooter. He can make them on occasion. Joel Embiid could hit three-pointers, but that's not his main bread and butter. So you might be wondering, Mike, what could the Sixers have done instead? Who should they have signed instead? Instead of Al Horford, you could have taken a route where you simply opted for depth on your bench. Sign Bogdan Bogdanovic for 4 years and $73 million. Sign Patrick Beverley for 3 years and $40 million. Sign Thomas Satoransky for 3 years and $30 million. Sign George Hill for 3 years and $28 million. Bring back JJ Redick on a 2-year, $27 million deal, or sign Marcus Morris for a 1-year, $15 million deal. The 76ers had the potential to be something great. Now Ben Simmons is injured and we don't know when he's going to return. And even if he does, it's not like things were going so great anyways.